Welcome back to our growing experiment. We're here with Jane and Miranda from the Sudbury Market. Do you guys want to tell us a little bit about yourselves?
I'll go first. I'm the interim market manager. I started with the Sudbury Market actually as a vendor. I'm a crocheter about 7 years ago, and I've developed a real family connection to 90% of our vendors, and I'm meeting new people every week. So it's great.
Great.
Yeah. I'm Miranda. I'm currently a board member. I'm now the vice chair of the board of directors for the Sudbury Market. I originally was introduced, well, I've been introduced to the market previously, but I used to work at Eat Local Sudbury. I was the manager there. Eat Local Sudbury had taken over the market at one point, and we were hiring the market managers through there. I became market manager in 2019. And then when I left the position, I knew I still wanted to be involved in the market. So I'm currently on the board of directors.
Okay, cool. And so, yeah, the Sudbury Market. So like, the thing I really like about that is it's a good place where you can go and get access to a lot of these local farmers and stuff like that. So how does somebody go about getting involved with the market? Like, let's say you're a farmer and you want to be a potential vendor. How would you go about that?
You can contact us at info@sudburymarket.ca and ask for an application. Farmers are always a priority for us. We love to have new farmers and promote the local foods that we do have there. I can shop year round with our market, and I don't have to hit a grocery store very often, so which is great.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we like about the market as well. Not only the farmers, but just other vendors too. Like you could kind of find a little bit of everything there, like soap, all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know who would be best to tell us how the market got started.
I'm going to leave that one to Miranda.
Okay.
So that's a big question. The market has been around for many years. It's been over 30 years that the Sudbury Market has been in existence. For the majority of that, it was city run. So the city of Sudbury ran the farmers market. Even when Eat Local had taken it over for a few years, the city was still very much involved. In 2019, end of 2018, early 2019, the farmers market became its own entity and is now a nonprofit run by a board of directors. We still receive city support, but we are our own nonprofit entity. So I can speak to 2019 onwards, but yes, since then we're still working close with the city, but yeah, we're our own entity now.
Okay, and so one of the things that we've been kind of wondering as we've been talking to more people, because what we're trying to do with the podcast, we think, is we're trying to give a place for, say, a lot of the farmers that would go and participate in these markets. We give a place for them where they can kind of talk and sort of express what they're about and why they're involved in it. Because part of what I think would help kind of grow the community that would help sort of fund these farmers so we could have, say, a really big, healthy market and supply a lot more people with food is that the people themselves have really interesting, valuable stories and a lot to teach us. So what do you guys think is like an effective way to sort of help grow this community? I figure that you guys would have a lot of experience with that being sort of at the intersection of where all these interactions sort of meet up.
Mm-hmm. Jane, did you want me to take that on?
Go for it.
Yeah, so I think to grow the community when it comes to farmers, people wanting to buy from farmers, I think the farmers market is a great place for a lot of almost networking and learning from each other. A lot of our farmer vendors are talking to each other on a regular basis, learning things from each other, also promoting each other within the market. There's a lot of promotion for all the farmers, all the vendors between each other. I also think it's just a hub. People who want local food, want local products, the market is kind of the place to go because they know our market is 100% homegrown, handmade, that everything they get is going to be a local product that's handmade in Sudbury or homegrown. And it's just a way, it's just the people who are interested in that, we're just kind of the hub, and we're always accepting new farmers, new growers, new vendors. And we're always looking to grow that and have more people join us. I just feel like we're just such a hub. Jane, you can add to that if you wanted as well.
I agree with Miranda. One of our long-term goals is to have a permanent place for this market so we can grow and we are as a board working on that. It is, as I said, a long-term goal, finding space. This pandemic has been extremely good for us actually, because we've almost quadrupled our vendor count since last year at this time.
Oh, wow.
We have a lot more farmers that are growing inside now. So they're doing hydroponics, which means that we have fresh greens, we have mushrooms, we have all those wonderful things all year round. So it is really, as Miranda said, it's a hub for your local eats. And we've been doing a lot of advertising as far as radio goes, just getting the word out there. And then our vendors also advertise for the market as well. So a lot of it is word of mouth for us to expand, but the word is getting out, believe me.
Yeah, it sounds like if you quadrupled the amount of vendors, right? Like it sounds like it's working. And I think that's a good way that people are promoting each other. I think that's a really good way where everybody could kind of know what's out there and make it more accessible for everybody.
Yeah. And I'll just add, I think like just on the topic, because of everything we've gone through in the last 2 going on 3 years now with the pandemic, there has been a huge shift to local. I feel like it was already growing previous to that, but people have really realized the importance of being almost self-sufficient, being able to get food from your community, supporting your local farmers. And I think that's part of the reason why the market has really boomed as it has. We're seeing a lot more people taking interest in growing their own food, and we've had just people kind of like dipping their toes in the water, potentially wanting to become farmers, homesteaders, that sort of thing. We've also been an outlet for a lot of crafters and artisans in this time, because there's been nowhere else for them to sell their products. Basically, all of the regular markets that they would be attending throughout the year, they just haven't happened. So we've kind of become that center for them, because a lot of them are doing that as almost a full-time job, and they need an outlet to sell their products. So we've been able to welcome them, which is really great. This winter market has been our most successful by far. Usually at this time of year, we have a hard time getting like 12 to 15 vendors, whereas we're maxing out at our 35 vendor capacity that we have right now currently at Science North, which is far beyond what we expected when we were originally planning to go into Science North. We were expecting a slow January, February, March, like previous years. But it seems like the momentum has just stayed with the market this entire time, which is really awesome. Like I wish there wasn't, the reason everyone wasn't here was because of everything that's going on, but I'm glad that we've been able to be the space for people to continue to provide for their families and provide for the community.
Yeah, and I was kind of thinking this idea too, when Jane was mentioning the idea of wanting to have, like, say, a full-time marketplace. And that's one idea I've wondered about, if it's like, it seems like we have, like you guys were saying, a lot of vendors. And so it's like we do have something that sounds like it could be approaching something like a more permanent market. And I think maybe there's a sort of a hitch point, sort of, where maybe when you have a place that's full-time and you have like a wide enough variety where it almost sort of reflects what most people would kind of think of as a regular supermarket or something like that, that maybe that would also increase and drive more people to it. Because sometimes I think maybe one of the limitations, in a sense, is it's not a one-stop shop like, say, a big box is. So like that because in my mind, if I were to sort of paint my perfect picture, I'd like to see exactly what you're describing, a full-time market. And so is there like maybe something that's sort of missing from that puzzle in a way? Like, is there like, so for an example, one thing that would be really hard to grow here, I guess, would be like, say, your tomatoes, your cucumbers, your sort of seasonal vegetables
During the winter.
during the winter. Yeah. So I guess what I'm getting at then is, should we strive to be able to provide the sort of year-round fruit and vegetables that we're used to getting at the supermarket, or as a sort of community, should we maybe be moving towards, say, a more seasonal kind of eating that's in line with that? So like maybe our Sudbury market would look very different than, say, a supermarket. I guess that's kind of abstract, but yeah, do you guys have anything to go on with that?
Well, I do. I think like, so when we're talking about a permanent space, I think it's more just like a permanent indoor location potentially in the future. I don't see us ever being like a grocery store that sells products 7 days a week sort of thing. I think that interaction at the market that people get, it's almost like an experience, and people really enjoy being able to talk to the people who are growing and producing the products. But when it comes to acquiring very seasonal produce like tomatoes and peppers and that cucumbers, those sorts of things that are very much a short season vegetable in our area, unless you have season extension equipment, if you're starting them earlier in greenhouses and extending your season with row cover and that sort of thing, or you're just growing with a greenhouse throughout the season. I think it's great that we've been able to have some vendors can have that later in the season. I don't think that's something we're trying to strive for year round here. You need so much equipment, you need so much infrastructure to have those greenhouses to be growing that sort of thing. I definitely think we need to be moving towards a seasonal diet. I think it's great that we have farms that have started growing greens year round here, because it's a lot easier to grow those sort of things year round in hydroponic systems and in greenhouses and that sort of thing. But I think it's beneficial for everyone on the planet all over the world to be trying to eat seasonally and locally if possible. It's like the best diet for the planet. And so I think that's definitely what we strive for. And that's what you'll see at the winter market, is you'll see those greens that are being grown year round, but then you'll have your like carrots and squash and that sort of thing as well, which is more seasonal. And then obviously the meats that are provided year round, depending on the pasture seasons and when they sell out of their meats in the winter. But definitely I would strive towards seasonal. I think if there's someone who does have greenhouses who can grow those kind of products year round, that's fantastic, but I don't think it's what we need to strive for. We do have College Boreal has come out to the market a few times this winter season. They're mostly selling like indoor plants, like their greenhouse cactus and that sort of thing. But I know their agriculture program with their greenhouses, they have in years previously grown tomatoes in those greenhouses in the winter, and they've actually had year-long seasons where they've grown from January to January, which in my mind, I almost can't even imagine, just thinking of planting out tomatoes June 10th and then frost hitting September 1st and having to pull all the green tomatoes off the plants. So I think it's a possibility, but I don't think it's what we're looking for at the market. I don't know if that answers your question, but those are my thoughts.
No, I think that does, because like I try to picture in my mind what a sustainable sort of community would look like. Like I try to think sometimes, if Sudbury were to, say, grow into a community that predominantly would get all of its food and all of its goods from the surrounding area, what would that look like? And that's why I kind of asked the question, would it look like a modern supermarket? Or would we basically have to adjust our expectation of, say, what food is available on the shelves at the time of the year? And I think in spirit, I think we acknowledge that sometimes, but I also sometimes think that if for a wider appeal to, say, the everyman kind of thing, who's used to seeing that supermarket, if there isn't a benefit in doing that. So that's where I'm trying to balance that idea of how do we grow it as a wider appeal to get to more people, while also having these sort of reasonable expectations of the limit, right? So
Yeah.
and so let's say in the spirit of moving towards seasonal growing, how would we sell that idea? Because I guess a lot of that would be preserves. There'd be, say, maybe like your sauerkraut, your pickles, your meats, your long storage, so your potatoes, your carrots, other root type stuff. I guess your squashes and that kind of thing.
Mhm.
So I guess it would be a bit of a diet shift.
Mhm.
Do you know of any other models that are sort of similar to that? Are you guys aware of other markets that sort of would be in line with that kind of goal already, or have a similar model to that?
Not that I know of. I think for the most part, basically markets are set up similar to ours, just the booths every Saturday or maybe twice a week, and it's just whatever those farmers have available. Um, I think when it comes, especially in Northern Ontario, because when it comes to produce, we're so limited, I think more resources for our farmers to be able to extend their growing seasons would be great, just to bring those items, um, stretch them out further for our community. And also even things like storage. As far as I know, a lot of our farmers have a hard time actually storing their storage crops because they need root cellars, they need cold storage, they need something to put them in, but not a lot of farms actually have that infrastructure, which is a barrier. So they might be able to grow it, but can they store it and keep it for us over the winter time? That's a whole other story. And then even when it comes to preserves and selling those sort of things, you need a certified kitchen to be doing that. So if you don't have access to a kitchen, or you have to rent out a kitchen from someone and the hours are inconvenient, it's too costly, you might not be doing that with this extra produce that you have. So I think there definitely needs to just be a shift in what's available to our farmers, so that they could maximize their production and what they can offer us year round. Yeah, that being said, like I don't think people should be expecting to get fruits and vegetables and everything fresh right in the dead set of winter, especially the fresh stuff like tomatoes and peppers, or fruit, like maybe apples could be stored. But even then, I don't think there's anyone in our area that has an orchard that's doing that sort of thing.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think it definitely comes with a shift in how people look at how they eat. And I also feel like some people, though they are eating a lot of local foods from our farmers, which is fantastic, some people see it as a supplement to the other things that they need to get at the regular grocery store. Like almost everyone I know is going and buying bananas and avocados and that sort of thing, and you would never see those growing here. There is
Yeah.
a banana greenhouse in Southern Ontario, which is awesome, but it's not a doable thing for most people. So I think as long as we can provide a lot of the food that people would like year round, I think we're accomplishing something good for the community and for
Of
the
course.
environment.
Yeah, of course. And yeah, I don't mean to say like what you guys aren't doing is enough, because certainly you guys are. Like you said, you're definitely providing an awesome facility and an awesome venue for these farmers to be able to move their products and reach out to the community. And touching on an idea that you just mentioned there too, it made me wonder if there wouldn't be a way to have a sort of community storage or a community like root cellar equivalent or something like that, like as a way of sort of trying to help out our farmers. Or would there be a way to say do that, like, I mean, would that be I mean, it's such a kind of a foreign thing, I guess, like a community storage place, or maybe there'd be a way to set up a co-op with sort of the farmers to have a shared space where they could store all their goods so that they could collectively meet the market needs or bigger market needs throughout the wintertime. And then even say figuring out a way to sort of help provide a kitchen in some way, because like you said, the kitchen has to be a very specific kitchen, so you can do very to regulation and to code, which makes sense. So I wonder if that wouldn't be an idea that would be a good thing to help support the local farmers, is maybe we need to figure out a way to help them store their food. And being that it's sort of a new idea, it would be a new sort of, I mean, there must be a way to sort of get interest community wise or government wise to supplement that, or what's the word I'm looking for?
Fun.
Not fun, but where they get funding would be good too, but where they give you like a break, basically subsidize a subsidy or something like that. Because something like that, I feel like if that is one of the things that limits the farmers is, say, storage space and access to a kitchen, then maybe in the interest of helping farmers, that would be an interesting goal to pursue. Would you guys have any idea of something like that, or if that's possible even? Or
I think that's a grand idea, to incorporate into a permanent facility that we would have
Mhm.
the market, because you would have storage, have a certified kitchen already that they could use at that time, and to have a storage. But that's something that would be a good long-term goal for us to do. But definitely it would help them for sure. And then they're not transporting as much either,
Yeah.
you know, at certain times. So they're not hauling in their big trucks every week. They have their stock there already.
Mhm.
So, but that's an idea that we could definitely look at down the road for when we decide to go for something permanent.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's a good, like Jane said, that's a really good goal to look towards. Like right now, that's definitely not something in the near future for us, but I
No,
think for long-term goals, like it's a really good
let's
thing
get
to
through this
implement.
week.
And
yes.
yeah, and this has kind of got my gears turning as a board member, just thinking, because we're a nonprofit, I'm wondering if there's different avenues of funding that we could look into potentially for our farmers to help them out with these sort of bits of infrastructure and like in the now. So that's something we can definitely look into, and I can look into, we can as a board look into, see if we can help our farmers in some way.
Yeah, because I think a lot of farmers are doing that, but maybe because they don't have those resources, they're just doing it for their own families, right? But they're doing it. So if they just had, a space where they can do it at a large amount, they're already
Yeah.
doing it. So you just keep doing it, and then it's
Yeah.
something to sell to the community.
And
Yeah.
it's a bit of a shift in idea too, because like as we're talking about the benefit of having the local farmers market is that it's a local community thing.
Mhm.
And in a sense, you, I guess, have to think more communally and say even how you're going to store your food or produce your food. I mean,
Mhm.
maybe that's where you kind of look at it where, like, I mean, and even when you talk to a lot of these farmers too, I've found that it's not really competitive. It is like, I mean, yeah, they are technically competing in the marketplace to say they're providing similar products and services, but they don't seem to have the attitude where it's like if they don't sell all of the meat and no one else does, that they've won anything. It's like they really think, well, no, there's enough here for me, there's enough here for you. And
They want
Mhm.
everybody to kind of do well.
Mhm.
Yeah,
yeah,
they
exactly.
want everyone to succeed and do well at the market. And what we found and what most markets find is the more farmers you have, the better it is for everyone.
Mhm.
It's not really everyone competing for each other. It just brings in more people that are buying more product and just getting more local food into the community. So yeah, it's really good that way.
Yeah. So I guess one of the things that I'm kind of thinking about too is like, so say for a person who's, say, not involved with the board like you guys are, what's like a good way for us to help out? I mean, other than with our patronage to the market and stuff like that, I guess getting involved with the organization might be a good thing. I'm sure you guys need volunteers and that kind of thing.
Oh, volunteers have become a backbone for me as an interim market manager. We've had some wonderful student volunteers that help out on the weekends with helping the vendors get in and get them out, offloading. Some of our vendors have been here for the 30 years, so they're showing their age a little bit. And so it's really great to have that community, but we also have adults coming in to volunteer as well. And we're always open to the idea of having somebody come in and experience the market. I've taught a lot of the younger kids what it is to be in a farmer's market.
Mhm.
And some of them have come from other countries, and they're learning about, first of all, winter in Canada, Northern Ontario, and they've never had farm fresh eggs, or they've never had locally grown lettuce, or things, or seen locally grown mushrooms, or things like that. So it's been very educational, because I try and teach the kids as well as being there, so they learn what being part of the community is all about. And what I love about our farmers market is we are a big family. I pretty well know each and every one of our vendors personally over the years, and they're there to support. It's really not a competition. We do limit certain groupings, like if we have so many soap vendors and we have so many different crafting sections, like so many wood people, that kind of thing. But our farmers are unlimited, because they are what makes our market, and they are why the people come. So the rest of the crafters and such, and the artisans, they know that and they respect that too, which is great. So we're all very supportive of each other. And it's just a wonderful community, and it's the true meaning of it.
Yeah, and for it to be just 1 day a week, I think in one sense it's not a bad idea, where you take your family out and you go get a few things on a Saturday, like instead of the rushing like in the grocery store, you just go to the farmers market, you go to the different booths, see what they have, and the crafts does kind of help in a way, just to kind of break it up a little bit, because you get to see different things that people are doing in the community. But like you said, the farmers, that's kind of what brings people there, right?
Exactly. And something you mentioned was coming in and seeing the different crafters, and that we really try and keep a good mix, so that way you're not coming back and seeing the same thing every week. We do have seasonal people that come every week, of course. The one thing that I really missed since the pandemic was the entertainment we used to have downtown when we had our market down there. Because once all of these restrictions are lifted, we're going to be able to have bands, and we're going to have it'll be more of an experience again, instead of just the necessities. And that's something that I really missed from before the pandemic, because it really did bring in the community. When there were special occasions, we used to have a garlic festival. We used to have the blueberry festival. So we always made, every weekend there was something big happening. Canada Day weekend, it was a huge celebration. We get bands, and the kids would have face painting. And so that's what I'm hoping that we're able to get back to soon. But with the pandemic, we've had all these restrictions put on us, and it's been a little tough to try and keep that community fun going.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, because that makes sense too. And like you were saying, changing the idea of, say, what grocery shopping is, right? Like, say if it becomes a weekend thing where you go to the farmers market and you're going to see live music and you're going to run into your friends, and you go with the whole family and you spend your time walking around and you look at the different arts and crafts and stuff, and you get your groceries and you go home. So you turn it into, instead of a go there, fill your cart, get in line, get out, you turn it into a whole experience, right? Which is kind of in line with the whole idea of why people, I think, are going to the farmers market in the first place. Is there's something experiential in how the food is procured by the people and how they're doing it. It's an extension of the experience, and I think that might be one of the strong sort of pillars of community outreach in that way, is provide the great food from the great people, but then also make it fun, make it a bit of a party. I mean, and it is sort of a celebration of life in a sense, when we are bringing together all of these people and all of these different goods and stuff from our area. It is a celebration, and maybe that's part of the sort of changing of the mindset towards it as well.
Definitely. Yeah, and just being able to talk to the people who are producing your items and know exactly what it is and where it's coming from, and you are getting I don't know, different varieties of things, and you can just know your food so much more going to a farmer's market, which really changes everything.
Well, I just kind of even think, just as an experience, like I think about a family, you go to the grocery store, quick, get your stuff, then you come home and quick, get it cooked and stuff. And I think when you go to the farmers market, you go there, you enjoy it, you come home, you're cooking the food. It's just a whole different experience, even like when you're eating it, like it just extends the whole time, right?
Yeah, I almost feel like it's like a refreshing experience, whereas sometimes when you go grocery shopping and doing all that, you're exhausted at the end. You almost don't even want to eat the food you just bought. But at the farmer's market, you're so enticed and you're so excited about the things you just brought home with you. Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think too, it's like you're like maybe what adds to the not being depleted but being refreshed is like you're kind of excited to try it. You're like, oh, this lettuce, like they just got it. I've never tried lettuce from these people before. I'm curious to see what it's going to be like. And then then you actually pay attention when you eat it too, because you're like, oh, this lettuce actually does have a lot more flavor than the stuff you get at the store. Like the greenness has a taste to it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so and even too there's different desserts and stuff like that. You pick a couple different places, a couple different things from a couple different places. Sorry, and you get home and you're kind of like, oh, I can't wait to have some of that. Or like we got these ham steaks there the other day from the market, and I was like, I never had a ham steak like that before. I mean, that's kind of interesting. So let's try that out, and you try a new recipe, and it really is an all-encompassing experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was 2 weekends ago, I think we had some locally sourced rabbit with locally sourced chicken. We had the potatoes, I think, were from Azilda, right?
Yeah.
So then we had some pork that was in the dish too. It was mostly locally sourced stuff.
Yeah.
And then on top of that too, we went and we got some moonshine from Crosscut Distillery. And Sophia's father made a traditional Brazilian drink called the Caipirinha. And so we made some caipirinhas. We had the whole family over. We had our snacks, and then we had this big meal. And the drinks we had were local. The beer we had was local. All of the meat was local. Almost the whole dish was local, and it was really nice. And it was a nice experience to fill the bellies of our loved ones with locally sourced food from people who love what they do too. It was a really nice dinner.
Yeah.
Well, and with that too, it's the next week you can go and tell the people you bought the food from how great your meal was and how much you enjoyed everything you ate. And they love that, and they love to hear that. And you can have a whole conversation about the meals that you've made with their products or the food that you've ate from them, where you can't really do that anywhere else. You can't, the produce manager at the grocery store doesn't want to hear about it.
Yeah.
Whereas the market manager will give you recipes for any single farmer and what they sell, because I have recipes for everything. And I've been eating at the farmer's market, unless it's bananas, really, that's about all I buy as far as fruit goes at the store, because I get my apples in the summertime and we preserve them. I get my spaghetti squash and I cook that up and I freeze that into packages. So it lasts me all year long and I don't need to go anywhere else. But it's it's a wonderful experience. And any of the farmers will have recipes for what they have. So if you don't know how to cook something, they will give you an easy starting recipe, most of them.
That just made me think as well, how you said you get the apples in the summer and then you preserve them. It just kind of made me think that as an individual, we could take on some of the responsibility as well, right? Where, oh, I'm going to the farmer's market in the winter and I can't get my fruits. Well, maybe you buy more during the summer and you preserve, and then you're still eating local all year round. That's a good point.
Exactly.
Well, and most of the farmers that are at the market, they'll offer they'll do the bushels, the half bushels and that sort of thing. So you can do your own preserving and canning and all of that too, which I guess does take some weight off of them from doing it to sell it in the winter then.
Yeah. Well, and maybe that's the way you sort of collectivize the storage in a sense, is encourage the idea of, say, buying in bulk and doing your own preserving. I mean, I know when we were shopping at Costco lots, one thing I would do is I would buy a big strip loin and I would cut it all up myself into our own size steaks, So I think some people already kind of do that. And so like you said too, you buy a bunch of apples in the summer, and when you're going to need to store them because you're not going to be able to buy them anymore, you buy a bunch, you throw them in jars or you can them or whatever it is you want to do with them. And so it's the same way like how we buy our beef, right? You think, oh, okay, well, I know I'm running out of beef, so I got to start talking to a farmer now because I'm going to have to wait another few months before I can actually get the animal. And so it just changes how you interact with the whole process. Instead of, oh, I can just go to the grocery store tomorrow, you think, oh, okay, this is going to take some planning. I need to call my farmer. I need to go and take a look at, like, you have to kind of look at your stock a little bit and
Yeah.
see what you need.
Yeah, it makes you more mindful of the food you're eating and how you're gonna what you're gonna do with it and how you're gonna get it. It definitely makes you think about it a lot more, but in a positive way that's beneficial for your body and the planet and your local farmers. Yeah.
Something else too is that when you buy fresh local food, it lasts a lot longer in your fridge. You can buy lettuce and it's going to last you 3 weeks sometimes, depending on how you store it.
Mhm.
So it the one thing about buying local and fresh is that it will last you a very long time compared to if you go to a box store or large grocery store. Sometimes the quality just isn't there. And you're throwing your blueberries out 2 days after you bought them because they're rotten on the inside.
Yeah.
Um, when you're buying from a local farmer, somebody's just picked that. So there shouldn't be any kind of that happening. So that's another nice thing about it is the longevity of the freshness of the fruit and vegetables that you do get.
Yeah, and I think it's been touched upon a couple of times throughout the course of this conversation is like, it's better for the world even to sort of think locally, eat locally, because if we can get say potatoes from Azilda and get our lettuce from another community and get our tomatoes from another community and this and that all in the local area, well, that cuts down obviously on transport costs, right?
Mhm.
And also maybe having maybe a little more realistic expectations, like not being able to get an avocado all year round, or maybe bananas is one of those things you give up, but it's like maybe it's I don't think it's all really that bad. It's just maybe because we grew up sort of being used to having a lot of these sort of privileges, right? Like maybe, like, I mean, I can never think of a time growing up, say, where we didn't have apples or bananas. And it's not like I grew up super rich or anything, but it was like, we always had access to fruit. Like there was always fruit. And there was no concept in my mind of like, maybe we wouldn't be able to get fruit tomorrow or whatever. And moving into the future that we seem to be moving into, it seems like we should be a little more conscious about, where does that come from? What is the real cost of getting it here? Because like, the company that say is importing the avocados from say Mexico or South America, they're taking into cost, because I mean, if they weren't making money off the avocados, they obviously wouldn't bring them up.
Yeah.
But there's some cost that maybe is not being accounted for, and maybe that's the detriment to the environment and to the community too, just because we're isolated in the sense that we don't buy our food in say a market where, like we were talking about, all of the other additional benefits to shopping at the market is the community, it's the music, it's the family, it's the fun. So maybe those are some unintended sort of losses that we're accruing sort of collectively. And that's another sort of reason why maybe we would want to say shop locally, think locally. It just seems to me, at least, and to a lot of the people that we've been talking to, it just seems like an answer that checks a lot of the boxes.
Yeah.
You're getting healthier food, you're doing less damage to the environment, especially considering I think a big part of the movement right now is people are actually, when they're doing agriculture and when they're doing their animal husbandry, they're much more environmentally conscious and aware of what sort of role they play in a sort of ecosystem rather than being a person who's sort of extracting from the land. They're conscious of the fact that they have to put back sort of in a sense what they take out.
Yeah, exactly. And I think specifically at our market, most of our farmers are in the organic, ecological, regenerative kind of area, where they are trying to build their soils and make their own somewhat of an ecosystem and be as beneficial to the land as they can while farming, which is really nice because a lot of most of our produce that's grown in the world is done in huge monocultures, and they're just, like you've mentioned, depleting the soils, depleting the land, and then just adding fertilizer on top, and they're not actually doing good for the planet and for the ecosystem. So it's just nice that with the farms and going to the farmers market, you can know what their methods are. They're going to tell you exactly how they did something, what they're adding to their soil, what they're taking out of their soil, everything that they're doing. which is really nice. And I feel like when you go to the farmers market, that's usually what you're finding. It's a lot of smaller scale market gardens that are trying to do things organically or ecologically or regeneratively or a mixture of all of that, which is great.
Yeah, it's a much more mindful engagement with sort of your day-to-day reality. It's I mean, maybe not totally at the forefront of your mind, but when you are, say, even if you say, don't think to yourself, oh, I'm going to buy local because I want to save the environment. Say you think, oh, I want to buy local because I want to support a local farm. Well, you're still getting a lot of these other benefits, even if you are only going in for the one thing, right? And it's yeah, I don't know. It is just trying to be more conscious totally of the whole of what goes into what you're doing when it comes to it's not, you're not just feeding yourself, right? It's not really that simple. We've had a sort of a nice period of time where it seemed it was that simple, but reality always seems to catch up to you, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think just because we're talking about the benefits for the planet and being mindful of where you're getting your food from and all that, I think we can also mention when it comes to the actual workers on a lot of farms, just how underpaid they are and how unsafe the conditions are, and how, like, even in Canada, most of our food is grown by migrant workers that aren't being supported by by the country itself. If they get sick, they don't get sick pay. They basically have no rights. And when you're supporting local farms, I would imagine for the most part, in farms that at the Sudbury Market, all the employees, although a lot of them are very small scale, they're getting paid at least minimum wage, a lot of them a lot more, or more than minimum wage. And so you don't have to feel like you're contributing to someone being underpaid and working in an unsafe environment to get food to your table, which is really, it's nice to know that as well, that you're supporting the local farmers, but you're also supporting community members in getting paid properly and working in safer conditions and just working in a good atmosphere at these local farms.
Well, that's an excellent point that like, because sometimes you'll hear a criticism about, say, small scale agriculture is it's not good enough to sort of feed everybody. But we also have the problem, like you just illustrated, that in the large scale agriculture that we have, we're also sort of forcing people to work in situations where, I mean, one could argue they're not being afforded certain human dignities that they should be afforded. And so it's like, you know, if you got to pay a little more for the food and you got to pay at a small scale, it's like, again, if you're paying someone where they can actually have a good job and have a family and all that kind of stuff, or support themselves or their loved ones, then it's like, you know, it's another paying into the community kind of idea. And it's a good point to illustrate that, you know, this big scale thing, it almost obviously has the effect of making people sort of not people in the sort of system of it, right? Because it's so big and they're doing prospectively, in a sense, a small job, right? And it's a real shame to do that, because really it is an important job. And maybe the scale is sort of what prevents you from sort of appreciating that. Because I do get the sense, like you said as well, that I think people who are doing this work are being, I would say, more fairly compensated for the hard work they are putting in. And I think rightfully so. I mean, if you look at the fact that, say, you know, you can go and buy a t-shirt for like $20, right? And you got to think, well, what was the fabric that went into that t-shirt? I mean, this is a little bit different, but I think in the same spirit. But it's like that it's cheap to you. It's like, but there's another, the cost is being paid somewhere by someone, right? And it's not necessarily in a dollar sense. And I think that's a good way to sort of think about it, right? Is like the money, in a sense, is exchanged to get you the thing, and there is money that goes through the whole system, but it's not money that's directly being put into the system. It is people's, you know, blood, sweat, and tears, I guess, to use a cliche in a sense. It is their real production, their labor, their real well, they're putting their life force into it. They're exchanging their life, in a sense, for some wage to have a life outside of work. It's like, you know,
For every vendor that we have, you're supporting us, a family.
Mhm.
Every single person there is a family that you're supporting, where the government, where they don't have to go and rely to our government and say, hey, give me money because I can't work, or whatever the situation could be. You're supporting local families when you come to the market, and that's the biggest thing, is that we're putting back into our own economy and not supporting these big box stores or these big companies that don't look at people as people. They are
Mhm.
numbers, and that's that. And for here, we're people. We and you're appreciated as people, and you're treated like people. So it's a so much better of a situation to be in. You guys talk about not knowing what it's like not to have. Well, I'm a little bit older than you guys, so I've I've experienced that in my life, where we didn't have fruit, or we weren't able to buy milk and things like that. And if we'd had those local farmers markets, that would have helped a lot. I grew up on the BC coast. When I moved to Ontario, I don't eat seafood anymore. But you make adjustments in your life and where you are. And the biggest thing here, though, is each time you buy from somebody that is at our farmers market, whether it's an artisan, a farmer, doesn't matter who, a baker, you're supporting a local family, and that's keeping them off of a system that is already broken. So I think that's an amazing thing that we have.
Yeah, and that's a good point too, where maybe sometimes we rely on the sort of structures to take care of us too much, when really we need to kind of get our hands dirty and really help each other out. And I mean that is taking your hard-earned cash and putting it in the hands of somebody else who hard-earned the cash you're giving them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and you're right. It rehumanizes the whole experience, and one of the benefits to being like a huge globally collected and connected world is that we get to experience so many vast and different things. But it's almost like a quantity over quality kind of thing. Like, I mean, how much of a connection can you have with, say, 7 billion people versus the people you're going to meet at your local farmers market? I want to say there's some kind of number. I can't remember the guy who suggested it, but it was something like 250 people is as many people as you can actually really have any kind of connection with. And maybe that's just like remembering names and all that kind of thing. And I mean, that kind of makes sense. I mean, to some degree, I mean, you have to have an interaction with these people and be able to see them and talk to them and all that kind of stuff. And I think investing in the community that way is a good way to do it. And I mean, the thing is too, is you go to the market too, and you're going to meet all different kinds of people too, from all different kinds of walks of life. And so, I mean, you're still getting a sort of, maybe not global is the right word, but you're still meeting a diverse array of people with very distinct and interesting lives. And that's kind of one of the happy things we've found in talking to all the people that we've talked to thus far, is everyone's got their story, and they're all very interesting. And and that's what I think, that's what I hope to provide when we talk to people, is that these are real people with real lives, and we can all be a part of, I guess, each other's lives by collectively engaging in this community self-support, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely agree that it's such a diverse group of people that are going to the market and are selling at the market, and there are so many relationships to be made by just going to the farmers market every weekend or every other weekend. You're just going to meet so many different people. And I guess while having this conversation, I might be diverting back a little bit, but I think it might be important to bring up when it comes to farmers market. So obviously I'm a huge proponent of everything to do with the farmers market. I'm on the board. I was a market manager. I love the market. You had brought up earlier about how even if you have to pay a bit more, like the market's so worth it, which it is. All the food and different things you're going to get, it's ethical, it's more sustainable, local, you're feeding the helping out local families. I think it is good to bring up that although there are like some produce and everything that is comparable to going to the grocery store in prices, it's not always super accessible for people to shop at the farmers market, which is really unfortunate, especially when it comes to things like meat products. They tend to be a lot pricier at a farmer's market, unless you're buying bulk, like a half an animal, whole animal sort of thing, than going to the grocery store, which is something that we could potentially be working on. This has been in the back of my mind for a while. A friend of mine, their parents, when they lived down south, there was a market that would worked with the city to it wasn't like food stamps, but it was like coupons that were given out to people that may not have access to farmers markets, might not have the income to go to them. So they would provide them with a certain amount of money every week in these market coupons to attend the market. And it's something that's been in the back of my mind, but I haven't really brought up at our meetings, which is something I really should. And this conversation has made me kind of think of that, just because we're talking about how great the markets are and how everyone should support them, but maybe not everyone can support them. Mm-hmm. So I'm glad I'm here so I can think about these things and they can come to me. So it's something that we can potentially talk about, because I feel like there is gaps in the accessibility of going to the farmers market, and trying to make your diet as local as possible if you really can't afford those type of items. Not that everything is completely unaffordable at a market, but it might cost a bit more than going to a discount grocery store, that kind of thing. And I know, oh, sorry, I'll let you go.
I was going to say, well, that's a great idea. And in thinking about that, like, you know, I don't think I would mind, say, part of our taxes, say in Sudbury, going towards a program just like that, right? Because that's money that I can look at, what's going into the city, right? And then it's going directly back into the community two ways. One way, it's going to feed that person who might not have access to the market, and then it's also going back to the farmer. So that's a good way to sort of invest into your city and then encourage the city to invest back into the local surrounding areas. So I actually think that's a really good idea.
Yeah, and if people are eating healthier food, the idea is that it would be healthier as well, right? So that there's just so many benefits to helping out people so that they could access the farmers market. Yeah, and because if cost is a big restriction, and say they are shopping at a more bargain store, and I don't mean to sort of throw shade on a bargain store, but if we're honest, I don't think the quality of food there is comparable to a farmer's market when it comes to nutrient density and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And I think, especially if you're a person who's growing up in a situation where you're not very privileged, I mean, access to nutrients is key, especially for young developing minds in these families who don't have access to those kind of resources. Yeah. So I think that's probably a really excellent idea. And I love the idea of that's another direct investment in the community there. I think that's an excellent idea.
Yeah. So it's something the market isn't currently in process of working on anything like that right now. And I don't want to speak for the board saying we are, but it's something, now that I'm thinking about it and Jane's here, it's something we can definitely work on in the future to try to make the market overall more accessible to everyone, because we want everyone at the market every weekend come out and support our local farmers and producers and artisans. Yeah, it's the sharing of ideas that we're kind of having here, right? Yeah. And it just made me think about how, one of the reasons we really wanted to talk to you guys was that people know there's a farmer's market, but if they've never been, I feel like it could be very intimidating, right? Because we're used to the grocery store where you're not really talking to anybody, your small talk with the cashier, and that's about it. But in the farmer's market, you're encouraged to kind of speak to people. So I think it could be intimidating, but being able to put faces to the vendors like we're trying to do with this podcast, I think it really could help people reach out. Yeah, no, you're right. That is a thing too, is like maybe a skill we've sort of traded for our access to technology and connectivity is that we don't really know how to socialize really anymore face to face. And it's kind of a lost skill. And I mean, this is sort of related, but like I think about how my wife and I might be like one of the last generations to like meet each other in person before we went on a date. Like, we met through friends, where I think of a lot of people now, they meet people online. And so it might seem trivial, but that little first encounter where you risk going up and talking to somebody and hope they don't reject you outright or whatever. I mean, it's messy, of course, because we're humans and nothing's perfect, but there's something that you learn there, right? And part of it is learning to sort of have some confidence and
and talk with respect and all that kind of stuff. So it's an important social interaction, and maybe we've lost something by sort of making every social interaction like frictionless. Like maybe there is a little friction that is good in a sense, right? Because you learn, oh, hey, I said the wrong thing there, and that's why this result happened. Or, hey, I have to correct my behavior or my attitude because what I'm doing is not proper. And that's where you get that social interaction. I mean, that's, I guess, a different branch of it, but sort of related.
Yeah, it's just the thought of how, it's so easy to order online now and you don't have to talk to anybody at all, not even a cashier, right? And the farmers market isn't that at all. So it's definitely a change in perspective, but it's really good to be able to go and socialize with people from the community. It really includes you in the community.
Some of the things that I've learned, one of our oldest vendors, like that has been with the farmers market from the very beginning, started when he was 15 years old.
Yeah.
He's now around my age, and I won't tell you what that is, but it's up there. And the changes that they've seen from that little pop-up basically on the corner with 3 or 4 farmers together to what we have today at Science North is amazing. And it's taken a very long time to get to where we are now. Let's hope we can hold on to this and it doesn't drop too much. But the characters and the personalities that are there, I deal with 35 plus personalities every week, and they're amazing. And I embrace the fact that they're all human beings and they all look at different things differently. But every single one of them comes back to this community. And as Miranda said earlier, it is a hub, but it's a hub for so many different things, not just your local food. You've got, there's a lot of support there. Farmers, if somebody's had a bad season, there's ways of people, they discuss, how can I change this? What happened here? So there is a lot of that support, and it's not a competition where you are out in the real world outside there in technology. Everything's a competition. Everything, I got to be the best. I got to be the best. Here, this is what I have for you, and I'm presenting it to you. So now it's your choice what you do with that. But I'm not telling you I'm the best. I'm telling you this is what I've grown with my 2 bare hands, or this is what I've made with my 2 hands. And it's there for you to choose. So it's not as in your face either as when you're doing commercial stuff. So I really love the family touch to it and the sense of family that we have, and the personalities, because there's quite the characters there.
Well, that made me think it's like it's not a situation of I'm the best, but it's here it is, I've done my best.
Yes, exactly.
Like this is, I believe, the best product I can possibly give you. And there's a humbleness to that, right? Because you're like, this is what I've got for you, and this is what I'm asking for it. And I mean, this is what it's worth, right? And that's, again, too, even from the provider's point of view, and maybe that's what it is like when you really get involved in farming at the level where you're working with your hands and doing all that, you're aware of the work. And I mean, I don't know, I think it just has to humble you. I mean, you know what it costs, you know that, like, say the next guy is probably working just as hard as you. He's probably got his own batch of problems that he's trying to do, as well as keep the farm going. Because I mean, we all know that farmers, on top of, in a lot of cases, people that we talk to work full-time jobs as well as working their farm, say 40 hours a week or more. I mean, some of these people are probably working as much as 80 hours a week
Or more.
or even more, which is an insane thing to think about. But I mean, they come to there, they say, this is the best I can do, and here's what it is. And I mean, they do not disappoint, not in my experience. I mean, every bit of food that I've had the pleasure of being able to try or have from the market has been excellent, and enriched the quality of my life for sure.
Something that's also unknown, and we focused a lot on the farmers, but the artisans that are there as well. An average artisan makes $4 an hour. Did you know that? That's what an artisan makes, and that's a high wage for an artisan. And I know this because I've done it for many years. So they do it with joy. They do it because it's something, an extension of themselves, and they want to put that out there for people, somebody else to enjoy. And the farmers are the same philosophy, really, because it is what it's coming from inside, and that's what you don't see when you go to a grocery store, a box store. And I don't want to bring up the big W word, but all those big places, you're not seeing that heart and soul that has gone into what you're receiving. So that's another thing. I do all my Christmas shopping there too. Everything is handmade, because I'm supporting local, and there's so many unique gifts. Somebody might, they only make one of this or one of that. So you might never find it again. So I think the uniqueness as well, and the variety that we have. So it's not just the farmers, but yeah, definitely it's a family atmosphere, and it comes from family. So that's the biggest thing I like about it.
Well, and that makes me think too, like this right here is a wallet. So this wallet here, I didn't buy it locally. But it was when I was starting to get into looking into small producers. And so I think it was called a kawa. It was like a certain style of wallet. And so the guy who made it was an Austrian guy named Max, and he was living in Japan at the time. And so I set up this deal with him where I basically paid him the money for it. And he sent me my wallet from Japan. And when he made this wallet, it was the prototype. So this is the only wallet like this in existence in the whole world made by that guy.
Yeah.
Now that doesn't mean anything to a whole lot of people, but to me, it's kind of cool that I got this Woodsman's Finest wallet, and this is the only one there is, and it's mine.
Exactly. And so you take something home special. It's just, it adds to that experience where you're not going to the grocery store, throwing it in the cart, running out to car and throwing the kids in the car, and away you go. You're taking the kids. The vendors most of the vendors love kids. They talk to them, and I'm a real sucker for kids. So if I'm walking around and I see them, I start chatting with them, because they're our future market goers. Yep. And I want them to have a good experience when they come see us. So if they remember that crazy lady that came up to me and started talking, and it was a good experience, it's going to bring them back, and they're going to remember that when they get older. So that looks at longevity of our market, is to keep these young people coming. And same with the volunteer aspect, because now all these volunteers go, oh, wow, I didn't know this. This is happening. How long has this been going on? When you tell them 30 years, like twice your age, they go, wow, I never knew these things existed, because they're behind a computer or a technology all the time. And this gets them out into reality to see people actually working for a living and reaping those benefits. So they get to
and maybe it puts a little more wonder back in the world too, where it's, I don't know, it makes things special again in a way. Like I don't know, it's not silly to, like, I mean, maybe it is silly to think my wallet is special, but I like it. It's my wallet. I mean, it's just a silly thing like that, but I mean,
it makes you feel good.
Yeah, it's it's putting the heart back in things, the spirit back in things a little bit. Like even
beyond money.
Yeah, exactly. Like even my hat wasn't expensive, but I got this in Portugal in the one time that I've ever been to Europe, when I got to go and see my wife's family. And, it's just that one hat that's from that one place, from that one time, and I'll wear it out, and eventually it'll wear out. But I mean, there's something connected to this hat that's more than, it's more than fabric.
Yeah.
It's a lot more than that.
It's a memory.
Yeah. And so I guess I guess we'll have to thank you guys for helping us create a memory here. And seeing that we're coming to the end of our time talking, could you guys let people know, whoever might hear this, where they could get in contact with the farmers market or volunteer or something like that, please? And
if you guys have any last thoughts.
Yes.
Just shop local and support these local families, and just come in and out to Science North. We're there till May 14th. Every Saturday, 10 to 2. Spring break, we're going to have vendors outside, as well as some on the inside. And it's going to be quite the experience, I'm hoping. Hopefully the weather will hold up, and just support local and support those local families, and enjoy. Be safe.
Yeah, thanks for having us here today and letting us talk about the market and our experiences and just give you like a deeper dive into the Sudbury market. We appreciate that. And we hope to see you guys out and everyone else out at the market. We run year round, so although we're at Science North till May 14th, we'll still be continuing into the summer and to the fall into next winter. Yeah, we appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you guys
Yeah,
for
thank
coming
you
and
guys.
chatting with us.